Okay, and without ado, we're going to pass it on to our last speaker of this section of the event, and that is Maria Langworthy, who's going to be looking at how we can use AI for holistic learning and school system support.
Great, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'm going to present up here, just making sure it works a little bit differently. And you can see my screen now, correct? Is that a yes? Excellent. Hello, everyone. Great to be here today. Thrilled. I'm going to bring a little bit different perspective than some of the discussions so far, but it's going to very much, I hope, echo many of the things that have been said today. But showing you also a demonstration of an AI product that my company has built for education. Let's see. Yeah. So I wanted to start a little bit in framing my story because it sets the context for the perspective I'm going to talk about and how we've developed AI in my company. So I'm a sociologist by background and started a long time ago looking at education from a research perspective, and was lucky enough to run a project called the Innovative Teaching and Learning Research Project. It was sponsored by Microsoft. And what it looked at was how education systems changed. And we did research in about 9 countries, all over the world to figure out, could we measure system change at a holistic level? Then I got involved in an effort called New Pedagogies for Deep Learning that tried to implement some of those changes towards, more modern pedagogical approaches that taught students and embedded those new competencies into teaching and learning. Then I jumped out and started to work on data more explicitly at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and how, as Anthony and we were just talking about, how we can use data to both measure and continuously improve education system. Then I got tired of that, and it's very hard to do, and went to Microsoft. And I was interested in how we could build technology products for education that would really help accelerate some of these new pedagogical approaches and whole system change at scale, right? Microsoft technologies are used by, millions and millions and millions of teachers and students all around the world. About a year and a half ago, when ChatGPT first came out, I got to lead the first custom implementation of this new LLM-based, large language-based models of sort of ChatGPT-like tools in New York City public schools. And the team and I, working closely with New York City, saw immediately the potential and the impact that this type of technology could have in the classroom. Learned a lot about how to do that and how students reacted to that. So I'm going to come back from all of that to how I see AI taking hold in education systems. From ministries of education all the way down to schools. As everyone here knows, it's the system's job to define the learning goals, define, what standards of math do students have to achieve by a certain level. And those learning goals shape the curriculum and teaching model that are practiced, that are taught, and how students experience that. And theoretically, that should lead to learning and the achievement of all of that. And so what we've seen is a plethora of new AI tools that are focused on that learning, focused on, tutoring for math, helping teachers design their instruction for a specific subject. And while this is great, my concern, based on all that research in the system view, is that's very hard to implement because at scale, because the adoption takes place, as Anthony said, classroom by classroom by classroom. And also, it's my belief, and what I've seen throughout my years of experience in research, is that there's some prerequisites to learning that go between that curricular and pedagogical model and students actually acquiring that learning. And those are factors that are kind of necessary conditions for students to engage in learning. And those are things like, are students confident enough to say they can do this? They can learn this specific curriculum material. And a lot of times that has to do with factors outside of school, right? Our students have basic needs. Do students, if they're intimidated, do they have access to the kinds of supports, the kinds of counseling? And those may be inside of school or outside of school. They may be transportation programs or food safety, or lots of different kinds of factors that students need to build that confidence and enable them to start to engage in learning. And as Laura, Anthony, and others have said, engagement has a lot to do with the mapping between the curricular goals of the education system and the student's personal goals. And engagement has to be based on motivation. And if there's a gap and students don't see the things that they're learning in the classroom as deeply related to the things they want to achieve, and that might be a career, a job, a specific type of skill, then there's going to be a gap in that engagement. So what my team and I did was say, okay, can we build AI for these necessary preconditions to really develop, help them get in a place where they can be confident and feel motivated because they understand more clearly how what they're learning is going to connect to their future goals. So I'm going to show you a demonstration. It's an early product. The user experience is not beautiful, but it's a product that my team has been building over the last 4 or 5 months at CampusEvolve. And it's a tool that targets this specific stuff. It's designed for higher education students in colleges and for the transition between secondary and post-secondary. And we've designed it at a whole system level. I live in Seattle, which I don't know if you've heard on the news, is just experienced a cyclone. So I'm very thankful that I could find a place to present to you today. So in Seattle, it's part of a state, Washington state system. And so we designed this tool to support all students across Washington state and give them a conversational experience that's personalized. Now, I hope I can show you a video here. It's going to go somewhat fast of the tool. And we call it the AI guide, and students identify some factors that are related to them, so the system can start to build a profile to know who that student is to better be able to support the student. Then when they enter the app, we have a set of suggested questions across different areas, not just academic areas, that to show them there are a range of questions they can ask. Here's a question about, I need help balancing life in school, and it suggests some things and it takes them to a resource where they can get that kind of support. The system also generates a set of related questions. Oftentimes students don't know what questions to ask or how to ask those questions. So the AI system generates some of those. And the student was just showing some examples here of the type of questions students can ask. In this case, they're asking about financial aid. And this is the way they set the student setup is related to their college in the state, Cascadia College. And so the response here is specific to that college and how they can get financial aid. Another factor here, feature, is what we call bookmarks. And students, they can tag a specific conversation to follow up on the items in that conversation later. And there's some other features that we're building into this tool that have to do with, let's see, is it continuing to go? Let's see. That have to do with helping students through their path through education. This is education broadly, and being able to see, okay, I can get supports for well-being. I can get supports for thinking about careers, and so they can get access to the resources in their school and help them explore other elements that are not necessarily related to academics directly, but they can help them a lot with things like motivation to see how that connects. So this is a tool, as you can see kind of quickly, that goes directly to students. It's not a classroom specific tool. One of the things that we've seen, and this is pertinent to this whole dialogue, I think, that we've had today, is the degree to which there is movement between policy discussions and concerns about ethics and actually putting tools in the hands of students. What we're seeing is a lot of schools and school systems are not ready to put tools in the hands of their students until they feel like it's approved by policy. And a lot of that also has to do with things like concerns about accuracy and relevancy of the AI, and is it producing responses that are accurate? So to build this tool and achieve accuracy, it wasn't as simple as just plugging in a ChatGPT. We had to do a lot of technical developments on top of what's called retrieval augmented generation to connect ChatGPT to the right content to respond to students' questions. And what we were able to achieve was actually very high levels of accuracy, relevancy, and usefulness. We tested this tool with 2 colleges, and the students rated the responses. And so out of a 5-point scale, you can see very high levels of accuracy and relevancy. That's not 100%, obviously. And so as leaders, you have to decide what's good enough before you put these tools in the hands of students. Another factor, a lot of concerns about students in relation to AI and information, and whether they can tell the difference between, AI supports and human supports. What we found is students are very mature about this. They were very aware that they were using an AI tool, and so they were very ready to work in co-designing this tool, practicing with us. And of course, we did this in a research context initially, so sort of building in the middle between the continuum of policy and ethics concerns and just putting, a raw tool out in front of students. So we did this in a controlled research environment. But in terms of what's good enough, I want to share with you one of the responses that we got back. We didn't ask for this response. A student sent this to us herself. And she just talked about how helpful this tool was. As you can see here, it has the potential to make a huge difference, especially with those who might be struggling to find the right resources or who feel overwhelmed by the process of navigating their academic journey. So this kind of expresses what I was talking about in how we can build tools at the school or system level to address confidence factors, motivation factors, because if you don't get across that intimidation gulf, you're not going to bridge the gap between enabling AI to actually empower students and give them agency to engage in that learning. So I've talked a bit now about the products that can be built. There's also this big question of, can this work in all environments? And, if every student doesn't have a laptop, that's connected to the internet, can this work? And I just want to make sure everyone's aware that there's lots of work being done and tools being built already based on what are called small language models that take sort of a piece of a large language model and enable it to work on a device that may or may not be connected to the internet. And so the content and data behind that conversation can take place in a disconnected, say, application on a mobile phone. And we're seeing products being built. I heard a story of a system being built in Malawi for women farmers in Malawi who often had questions about the process or factors around their farms and their fields. And what this tool did was take all of the information from the Ministry of Agriculture in Malawi, build it into an application that could work on those women's phones while they're in the field, and they could ask a question about, does this seed look right? How should we fertilize this? And get a response immediately in real time on that phone. So I've talked a lot. Let me open it up for questions from you or discussion with you. I'm curious as to whether, when you're thinking about AI and implementing it in your tool, whether you're more interested in using it for these teaching and learning approaches that are classroom and curriculum specific, or for more of the student competence and engagement. Matthew, turn it over to you for any questions.
Thank you. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting for some questions to appear in my. Apparently, they're going to come in my inbox any second now. But okay. I have a question for me personally. Maybe because I mainly do this with my teacher head on. The applications in the classroom for me come first, and I'm kind of still there as the human, giving them emotional support. But I know studies show that students are going online to chatbots to ask these kind of questions. Do you have any experience of that, of how they're responding to this support, or well, you saw are they circumventing parents now to get this emotional support elsewhere?
Yeah, so I do think age is a factor here, and tools like what we showed you that just went directly to students. I think we should be wary of using those tools with very young students, right? Our tool is designed here for students that are probably 15 years old or older. In a K through 12 situation, you might be able to put this kind of tool and give it to parents, because parents also have a lot of questions. And there's a lot, and what we saw in New York City, specifically related to your question, is as soon as you put a tool like this in front of students that was connected to their classroom or connected to their school, the number of questions students ask expanded exponentially, because they were more comfortable, that intimidation factor. They were often more comfortable asking questions of a tool where they knew they were anonymous, that they knew there was no question that was going to be considered stupid. A lot of students that are very disadvantaged don't know the language of education and don't know what teachers or other students might mean when they use a specific term. They can ask a tool like this, whether it's in a classroom or in this school and system context. They can, and parents as well, they can ask these tools questions and get very immediate responses in a private context where they feel more safety.
Okay, thank you. I've got one last question, and this might open up to the entire panel. Is what would a good task force look like to bring AI into a school? So what kind of people are you looking for? What might that profile look like? Is it just teachers, SLT people? What might that look like in a school?
I'll start with that and then open it up to others. I would say students, actually first and foremost students. When we developed the tool I showed you, we had a student advisory board, essentially, where we started with their conceptualization of their school experience, had them talk openly and with each other, with only a few adults in the room, because they're going to talk in more comfortably and more honestly if they're in an environment where they're the majority, essentially. So start with students, I would say. If you start with a lot of students, you'll quickly be able to narrow it down to maybe that subset of students who are very articulate, thinking about these things and not shy to talk about them. Obviously families and teachers and system leaders as well. Other folks on the call, what would you suggest in terms of a task force?
It's worth having specialist expertise as well. So there are real issues around data protection and so on. Yeah, there's a lot of teachers who've got a good feel for that, but these are high-risk things for schools as organisations, and so bringing in expertise for those who really do know the nitty-gritty of that. I love Laura's suggestion earlier of the ethics committee around this. Somebody has to go beyond, look at what we can do, to start thinking about, yes, but should we do these things?
Exactly. Laura, do you want to jump in? I saw you appear for a moment there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am here. I definitely think that there's an important thing here around intersections. So where there is an intersection of interest, expertise, creativity, insight, that's where good thinking happens. So if we can bring people into a room who can have complementary viewpoints and experiences to add to that, I think it's really helpful. Expertise comes in lots of shapes and sizes, of course, as we know. But one of the things I wanted to challenge in the comments actually was around age. I don't think we should take it for granted that anyone of a particular age should be better or not as good as anyone else. And so I think keeping the doors wide open to interest and enthusiasm and curiosity is a good idea.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Age shouldn't be a number on this. Age is just a number. Sorry, that's the one. That's the saying. I'll get that in the end.
I kind of agree with that, but there are regulations, obviously, FERPA in the United States that, determine what you can put in front of students. So that, and what Miles said, you need experts on that kind of, those policies, those regulations, to make sure that whatever tool you're using, it lines up with that policy framework.
Yeah, and I think it's always pedagogy and policy first, and then whatever you're going to do next, lay it on top of that for positive gain. John, your mic's unmuted. Do you want to add something quickly? Because I'm very conscious there is another session that's going to start promptly after this.
I agree with everything that's been said. I'm a huge fan of, and have worked across districts or within a district, and I'm a huge fan of schools coming together rather than reinventing wheels and replicating and expending energy and resource and time individually as a school unit. And I like the idea of bringing that expertise together across schools and doing some collaborative work in a learning community like that would be very, very good, I think. And then that, what that does is that gives energy to a lot of the district and the, in our case, secondary schools where their feeder primary schools, who can then align some of the work they're doing together.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to ask each of our presenters to give a 30-second takeaway or message. I was going to start with you, John. Do you have anything you want